and to not pay anyone and flirt laws, etc. So we were trying to work this out. So we did a number of things. So all the startups that we create have mandated in their articles, which are the governing document, that they're all have to abide by B Corp certification. Don't know if you've all got B Corp. So which covers a bunch of stuff about operating well. Some of the startups that we've created have what's kind of called a golden share, so that when if a charity is a shareholder, even when the charity gets massively diluted, perhaps because external funders come in, that being diluted means you've got much of a less say. But actually, that golden share can mean that even if you've got 2% of the company, you still have the deciding vote over a few matters that are fundamentally important. So you can protect the core mission that way. And we also made all our founders sign what we're calling like a social founders pledge, which means that they will give away some of the value that they realise if the venture is successful. So we were kind of thinking about that quite a lot, about how do you build it into the kind of like core fabric of the company.
Do you share those sort of documents and all that sort of thing? Is that in the public for, say, someone that was starting a social venture to ensure that they were aligned with those sort of things?
Yeah, we can, because we set the Good Lab up on the premise that all the IP that we created would be shared for the sector. So yeah,
cool.
Give us a shout if you want them.
Thank you.
I think there's also something about culture. So there's the ethical commitment to, do you know what, when it comes down to it, I'm, where possible, going to put purpose above profit, because that's what I'm here for. I could have gone, go start a financial services business, but unless it's having positive impact, that's not why I want to be in a startup. I want to build a business. There's also the cultural thing, right? So there's that, how do you counteract once you get above, if you get above 100 people or whatever the magic number is, how do you retain that lightness of foot and that innovative culture and that risk-taking, actually, that considered risk-taking, and that everyone wearing the learning hat all of the time, rather than the quality hat or the creativity hat, and those are also important, but which one is the priority, I guess. So I think that is a really hard thing. There's lots of great articles about how to do it in Scale Up. I think it really comes down to the conditions that the founders create and who they bring on and at what stage to support them in maintaining that culture.
I saw a really interesting post by Just Giving recently, the founder of Just Giving, and she was talking about staying in the learning space. She was given advice early on to stay in the questioning phase before going into the problem solving and fixing phase. And I thought it was such an insightful snippet, and I feel like they did really well at retaining that startup kind of innovative culture, and now they've been bought by Blackboard, and it will be really interesting to see over time whether they can keep that in those conditions also. But I think they're an example of someone who has kept that spirit alive within their organisation, even though they grew and scaled quite extensively. But I'll try and share that in the follow-up. I'll share that little quote from her because I thought it was really insightful. Sorry, Andrew, did you? Oh no, it was from, right?
Yeah, just to add to what Andrew and Mel said, I guess for me, it's very much about balancing, like taking that knowledge that I've taken from 13 years being in a big corporate and understanding how it works and actually how they make money, but kind of using that knowledge to kind of mine as much as possible, kind of, what you can from it and maximize that to do good. So that's very much how I see Matchable working, but obviously you do stick to your values. You have those values that will kind of keep you on the straight and narrow if you kind of step out of line. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, Natasha?
Related to that, thank you. So, Natasha, I run a small independent consultancy called Red Pencil.
Just celebrated 17-year birthday.
I only found that out by filing my company return, which says something about my kind of admins and my head is, probably shouldn't admit that in public. But actually related to much of what you've been saying, have any of you looked at the, and perhaps bringing it back to some of the kind of practical spaces that charities look at, Have any of you looked at the social investment financing models, and what conclusions did you draw around the matches or otherwise that your products and your innovation may or may not have had with the framing of social investment and some of the tax breaks and things that can come with that funding?
When you say social investment, do you mean impact investment?
I mean the models of funding where you have the investors at the early age. You usually get a bit of a kind of a window to develop a product, and the returns are based on not just a monetary. So you do have to pay back, but your returns are not just based on a monetary consideration, but they are based on the supporting of the social good bit and scaled appropriately.
We spent about 6 months trying to take social investment money from Cat Venturesome.
Oh, interesting.
And what we basically found is it doesn't really work if you've got an ambition to scale. So we just got caught in this massive conflict. So Cat Venturesome, another one of our startups called On Hand, we'd gone to their investment committee and said, and they've gone, it's 95% probable that we'll be able to give you, I think it was 80 or 90 grand, and they were like, it's based on this interest rate, and it was basically a repayable loan, kind of grant repayable loan, which is a common financial instrument in the sector. But what made it not happen was that they said, because of your ambition, you are not going to find enough money in the social investment space to fund your growth. Because we were like, if we're going to build a big tech company, then our next funding round is going to be probably 5 or 6 million, which in the commercial, a couple down the line. So in the commercial world, you're like, yeah, that's normal, right? But Holly at Cat Venturesome was like, that's probably going to be the biggest ever funding round that has ever existed in the social investment space. I was like, fine, bring it on. So I think the biggest is about 10 million, which was Hackney Community Transport. It might have changed a bit now, that was about a year ago. So she said, you're going to have to attract commercial money into your business. Fine. And then she said, if you attract commercial money into your business, you will need to have founders that are much more heavily incentivized than they currently have through giving them more shares. Because commercial VCs will want to see founders that have got a massive amount of skin in the game. So we're like, fine, we'll give them more equity. And then she said, if you give them more equity, we can no longer fund you, as the founder will be getting personal gain out of your business. So basically, because we had too much ambition, which meant that we just broke